There's a parable in Luke 16 that is probably the strangest, most controversial, and most misunderstood of all that Jesus told. It's the parable of the shrewd manager. And what Jesus says at the end of it goes against everything you'd expect to hear from a spiritual teacher. Most people pass quickly through this parable. It's uncomfortable. It seems like Jesus is praising dishonesty. It seems like the moral is wrong. So many people resolve the discomfort by skipping to the next chapter. But what's in this parable is the most direct financial teaching Jesus ever gave. And if you don't understand it, you'll continue with the same relationship with money you have now. Let's open it. Luke 16 verses 1 to 8. The story. A rich man had a manager, a financial administrator, a CFO in modern language. This manager was reported to the master for wasting the company's resources. The master calls him and says, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer." The manager panics. "What shall I do? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg." Then he has an idea. Before being officially fired, he calls in his master's debtors one by one. To the one who owed 100 barrels of olive oil, he says, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. To the one who owed 100 sacks of wheat, take your bill and make it 80. He's reducing the debts of his master's customers, illegally without authorization. So they'll be in his debt and welcome him when he loses his job. This pure financial shrewdness, with a generous dash of dishonesty. And then comes the verse that leaves everyone wondering what to do with this story. Luke 16 verse 8. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. The master, who was cheated, praised the manager. Jesus, who is telling the story, uses the master's praise as a teaching point. This doesn't make sense unless you understand what Jesus is really saying. Jesus isn't praising dishonesty. He's praising shrewdness, applied intelligence, strategic thinking, using what you have now to secure the future. And the phrase that follows, "The people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light," is a direct rebuke to those listening. Jesus is saying, look at this dishonest manager. He's losing his job and uses what he has to prepare the future. He thinks strategically. He acts shrewdly. He doesn't just sit waiting for the situation to resolve itself. And you, children of light, you who should have God's wisdom, who should understand spiritual and practical principles, who should administer the kingdom's resources with intelligence, are less strategic than he is. This is severe criticism. Then come the verses that are rarely read alongside this parable. Luke 16 verses 9 to 13. Verse 9. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. This sounds strange. Is Jesus saying to use money to make friends? Yes, but not the way it seems. Make friends here is an expression that means building genuine relationships through generosity. Using what you have now to create value for other people, not through calculated self-interest, but through the understanding that resources are tools of connection and impact. The manager used the master's resources to secure allies. Jesus says, use the resources you have to build something that goes beyond you, to impact lives, to invest in people and causes that have eternal value. Money goes away, but the impact it creates remains. Verse 10 to 12. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? Here's the key to everything. Jesus is building a hierarchy of faithfulness. Money, which he calls worldly wealth and the least, is the most basic level of faithfulness. If you're not faithful at the basic level, you won't receive the advanced. And what is true riches? What is property of your own? In the following verses it becomes clear. It's full spiritual trust. It's being positioned by God for greater responsibilities in the kingdom. It's receiving real spiritual authority. Financial administration isn't a secondary subject in Christian life. It's the training ground for everything else. Verse 13. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus closes the sequence with the clearest statement about spiritual and financial loyalty that exists in the Gospels. It's not a prohibition on having money. It's an impossibility of having two masters. It's the affirmation that, eventually, when the moment of decision comes, when it's necessary to choose between financial interest and obedience to God, one of the two will lose. And you will reveal, in that moment, whom you truly serve. What does this parable and this sequence of verses teach about finances? First, think strategically. The dishonest manager lost everything, but used what he had to prepare the next chapter. You, with integrity and purpose, should do the same. Not reactively surviving month to month, but thinking about the future. Planning. Using the present to build what you'll need later. Second, use money to create lasting impact. Resources spent on pure accumulation end with you. Resources used to serve, impact, connect people, finance greater causes, these create a legacy. Third, be faithful in the small. If you don't manage well what you have now, whether minimum wage or high salary, you won't manage well when more comes. Faithfulness in the small isn't preliminary. It's training for what's coming. Fourth, resolve the loyalty conflict. Every person reaches a crossroads at some point where they must choose between what money commands and what God commands. Whoever has already resolved this conflict internally, before reaching the crossroads, makes the right decision at the right time. Whoever hasn't, wavers, and often makes the wrong choice. The parable of the shrewd manager isn't a story about tolerated dishonesty. It's a story about the power of strategic thinking applied to resources, and a direct challenge for the children of light to be at least as intelligent with what God has given them as the world is with what it has. If you understood this, you understood Luke 16. And if you understood Luke 16, you have a different north for your finances. One that combines integrity with intelligence, faith with strategy, spirituality with concrete action. Write in the comments, what will you do differently with what you have now?